how the benefit impacts you and your loved ones. So our presenter today is Laurel Beeden. And Laura Beeden spent her career working on retirement income policy as a researcher, writer, speaker, and educator in academia, government, think tanks, and on the Hill. In retirement, she continues her policy work part-time and is a member of the English Department Alumni Advisory Board at Virginia Tech, where she received her doctorate. So Laurel, once again, we thank you and appreciate your time, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be back with NCBA. Last time I was talking about caregiving, and I said something about Social Security, and I think it was Angie, and I said, oh, gee, we need to talk more about Social Security. And Angie said, will you come back and talk about it? Well, Social Security is my absolutely favorite topic in the world because I think it's so important. So I am delighted to be here. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. There we go. Wiser is where I am a volunteer and where I worked a number of years ago. And that's who is sponsoring this presentation today. Pardon me while I blow my nose a minute here. Wiser is a nonprofit, and it's celebrating its 25th anniversary this year. The purpose is to provide women with basic financial information so they can take control of their financial lives. We also provide information for educators and policymakers so they understand what women need and what women are going through. Also, we bring together key stakeholders to work towards solutions, and that means Capitol Hill, the think tanks, the lobbyists, big industry, and financial industry. Next slide, please. And we also operate in partnership with the Administration on Aging, the National Resource Center on Women and Retirement Planning. And this is a one-stop gateway to provide basic retirement information. And you can see the rest on the slide. I'm going to move along, but if you would need information more than I'm giving you and you would like to read it, just visit Wiser at the center and the center at www.wiserwomen.org. So let's rock and roll on Social Security. Next slide. What is Social Security? Well, it is the foundation of retirement income. And if you think of a pyramid, put Social Security on the ground, then pensions and savings, and maybe your home. But at the base of everything for retirement security is Social Security. It also provides benefits to retired workers, workers with disabilities, and qualified family members. So it isn't just for the retired individual, and we'll talk more about this later on. Social Security benefits are for life. Unlike your savings account or maybe the money in your 401k, depending on how it's invested, Social Security will not run out. It is there for life. And the beauty of Social Security benefits is they are adjusted annually based on the Consumer Price Index. Now, that was a 1.3% increase in 2021 and estimated at 6.2 for this coming year. I heard the CPI yesterday. I think it may come down, I understand, to maybe 6.1 or 6% for 2022. The point is that Social Security keeps your benefit up with what it costs to live. It does not go backwards. You may, just a little heads up on this one, you may say, well, wait a minute, they told me that the CPI for the year was X and my benefit went up Y. The reason is the CPI for the year is calculated based on all 12 months from December to December last year. Social Security is based on third quarter to third quarter, because they wouldn't be able to increase your benefit in January if they had to do it in 24 hours and get everybody's checks calculated. About 180 million workers pay into Social Security taxes. That is just about all workers. There are some state and local workers who do not pay in, and there are some churches who do not pay in. Other than that, most workers do. Next slide, please. Who receives Social Security benefits? Quickly. 46.9 million, 47 million retired workers, 8 million disabled workers, almost 4 million widows and widowers. So if you die, your spouse may be eligible to receive, if your spouse's benefit on her own is not higher, they can receive a benefit. 2.3 million spouses, 1.1 million adults disabled since childhood. That means that if you have a child, for example, who has cerebral palsy, that child can be eligible to get benefits through adulthood because they were disabled when they were a child. And then 2.7 million dependent children. And I'll go more into who those children and who those widows and widowers are. Next slide, please. And let me say here, I'm fire hosing you with information. We're doing a skimming across the top of the water. And those of you who heard before our discussion of old ladies pinching their cheeks so we look alive also may have heard me say I will be happy to do some peas and carrots presentations. If there are a lot of you who are interested in one specific part of Social Security, I can talk about that, and I can add in some more about something else. But let's talk about this whole skimming across the top. And if you have questions, if you will write them down and send them in, and I will send them in to Angela or Angie, and I will answer them when the presentation is done, because I may answer the question as we go through. So who pays and how much? In other words, who is that FICA and why is he taking money out of my paycheck? Well, workers and their employers each pay 6.2% of the workers' earnings in contributions up to the Federal Insurance Contributions Act limit, FICA. That's the FICA on your pay stub. The total Social Security contribution is 12.4%. You also pay Medicare, that's 1.45% each employer and employee. And then earnings above $142,800 in 2021, and that goes up every year based on wages. That anything above that is exempt from the Social Security tax. Now, the reason that is when the people who designed Social Security said, okay, do we tax the multimillionaires or not? And the focus was on providing a base of benefits for people who lose a income of the worker due to retirement, disability, or death of the worker. And the amount, this cap, represents or it used to represent, about 90% of the wages in the United States. So what about those people that are earning millions? Why don't they have to pay in? Well, we're going to get to that in a minute, so hold that thought. And worth thinking about, you wouldn't be able to pay Social Security benefits based on all income. Also, well, there's so much I want to tell you about this that I get rolling on this. By the way, if you are self-employed, you pay both the employer and the employee portion, but you get part of that back. Next slide, please. What happens to the dollars when I pay FICA tax? Now, there is a feeling, I think, sometimes that there's a box in Baltimore with your name on it, like there is with your 401k. There is a savings account with your name on it, and you know exactly what is going in and what you're going to, well, maybe what you're going to get out. You know where you have invested your 401k. That is not quite the same with Social Security. The 6.2 tax that you and your employer each pay are credited to the Social Security funds. 5.3% of that goes to the retirement and survivor insurance. That's called OASDI, or the OASI, Old Age and Survivors Insurance, and 0.9% of that goes to the disability insurance. In 2020, the trust fund income was $101,118,000,000.1 billion, and the trust fund outgo was a little less than that. So the income to the trust funds was 10.9 billion. What does all that mean? What that means is that Social Security, I'm getting Social Security now. I'm old enough to get Social Security. My Social Security benefit literally is coming from the Social Security taxes that you pay. So that's part of what you pay into the trust fund comes out and pays my benefit, as it does the benefits of people with disabilities and the surviving spouses and the spouses and the children who receive Social Security. How do we know what to give people? Well, I'm going to get to that in just a minute. Is everybody confused enough now? So there's really not quite a box in Baltimore with your name on it, but there is money coming in and then going out because it is recorded. Okay, so if you'll notice at the bottom there, it says increase in the trust funds, $10.9 billion. And by law, the surpluses, in other words, what comes in and what goes out, if there's extra, that goes into the trust fund, and that is invested in United States securities and earns interest that goes into the trust funds. It's not in a coffee can in the backyard buried of the Social Security Administration. It's like if you go to the bank and you put your money in. You may put it into a bond, you may put it into a savings account, you may buy some kind of entity. If you do that, generally, you're going to, if you buy a bond, you are going to get a set rate of interest and you're going to get a set date when you can get it back. That's not true with stocks, but that's true with bonds. So there is that agreement. Well, now, if the bank just sits on that money, how are they going to pay you interest on what you put in there? Well, that's because they are going to invest that money by loaning it out to students who want to go to college, by loaning it out for people who need mortgage money, and those people agree to pay back that money at a higher interest rate. So when your bond comes due, you can get your money. That's what the US Treasury securities, what the US bonds are that Social Security invests in. That money is invested in the United States. And people don't think about it that way, but I hear people say, oh, they're stealing our money, and they're, well, no, they're not stealing your money. Your money is being invested in the safest security possible, which is it has the full faith and credit, as we say, of the United States government behind it. So next slide, please. So the trust fund reserves, this is what I just talked about. The bonds earn interest credited to the trust fund. The accumulated surpluses are held in Treasury securities. They're called the trust fund assets or the Social Security reserves. Okay, next slide, please. The 2021 trustees just came out, and I would be willing to bet that if I said to a number of you, depending on how old you are, do you think Social Security will be there for you? I'll bet a good number of you will say, well, I'm not counting on it. So let's talk about that a little bit, because it's important to understand, again, how the money goes in and how the money goes out, and where the leftover is, and what happens if there isn't any leftover. So in 2021, the best estimate by the Social Security actuaries and the trustees is that the trust fund reserves, I remember that's the extra, are projected to be depleted. That means income is projected to cover 78% of benefits due in 2034. So between 21 and 2034, revenue from the payroll contributions, what workers are contributing, and the interest earned on the reserves, and benefits are taxed. I pay taxes on benefits. Not everybody does. It depends on your income level. It's very slow. And if you look at the very bottom of the slide, you can see the interest on the reserves is 6.8%. Interest on taxes on benefits is 3.6%. 89.6% of the income comes primarily from those of you who are in the paid labor force. So taxation of benefits and interest on the reserves and contributions from workers will be less than total outgo for the year. So that means they're going to have to tick into those reserves. And if some action is not taken in the near future, the reserves will start to be drawn down to pay benefits this year. And that's 2034. By 2095, will any of us be alive then? Yeah, maybe. Some of you will be. I won't be. 2095, assuming no change in taxes, benefits, or assumption, revenue would cover about 74% of benefits in that year. Now let's review. And I say this, I had a surgical procedure, not a big deal, a couple of weeks ago. And apparently I am so focused in on Social Security that I was babbling as I was coming out of the anesthesia in the recovery room. And the lovely nurse, a man who I asked him because he wanted to know about this, he was 54 years old, and he said, is Social Security going to be there for me? Now imagine coming out of anesthesia and somebody's asking you about Social Security. Well, that means I had to have been babbling. And I said, well, of course it's going to be there for you unless all the workers in the country die of COVID or somebody shoots them. So the point is that workers working, and another point, I was actually coherent enough that I could tell him that workers working and earning and contributing, even if the trust fund reserves are empty, that means just workers contributing and beneficiaries getting benefits out, it will still not drop, given the current assumptions, below between 78 and 74%. And I think that's very important to hold on to. Also hold on to the fact that, yes, indeed, we do need to do something about it. And if you'd like, in the question period, I can talk about what some of the solutions are, or I can come back and do that, but that's not the point this time around. The point this time around is for me to please be assured that Social Security is not going to be a big fat zero. It's not. As long as we are working, earning, and contributing, Social Security will be there. Maybe not as much as you thought, but it will be there as a base. Now, let's get back to how much a Social Security benefit is. Next slide, please. Social Security benefits. Now, these are average monthly benefits from the 2021 Statistical Bulletin. Retired workers, average monthly benefit, about $1,500. Disabled workers, about $1,300. Widows and widowers, maybe $1,500. By family type, retired worker and spouse, $2,500 a month. Widowed mother or father, under 60, and 2 children. Here's the children that are dependent, and I'll talk about those in a minute. Almost $3,000 a month, and a disabled worker and 1 or more children, almost $2,000 a month. Now, if you look down the average yearly benefits, this is not heavy duty money. It is a base, and that's what it was intended to be. You need to save and supplement. So next slide, please. We're going to talk about you specifically now. What affects your initial Social Security benefit, that first benefit? First of all, the size of your earnings. The taxes of 6.2% of your earnings on $142,800. So if you earn less than that, you're going to be paying 6.2% on all of your earnings, okay? The number of years you worked and contributed. Did you only work for 10 years and contribute to Social Security? Were you out raising a family? Were you taking care of your relatives? The type of benefit you receive. And you saw from the slide before, are you a worker? Are you getting a disability benefit? Are you getting a spousal benefit? Are you a divorced spouse or a survivor? And the age you start your benefits. All of those things will affect your benefit amount. And remember, don't forget, After you start receiving your benefit will be increased each year based on the consumer price index. They call it the COLA, the cost of living adjustment, so that you don't fall behind the value of that initial benefit. Next slide, please. So, how are my benefits calculated? Really? The minimum number of credits you need to qualify for a Social Security retired worker benefit is 40. That's their 4 quarters in a year, and so that's 10 years of contributions. You can earn up to 4 quarters in a year, and the 2021 credit equals $1,470 in earnings. Or if you earn $5,880 in the year 2021, you get 4 credits toward your Social Security. So if you only have 10 years of Social Security work and earnings, you can still get a benefit. It will be very low. Benefits are calculated based on wage indexed average of your highest 35 earning years. What does that mean? You have to work. Social Security is based on a lifetime of earnings. It's based on what did your work contribute to the economy. So 35 years we consider a working lifetime, the years that you contributed. And then when I started teaching, I was earning $4,300. This was at Virginia Tech. I was a student teaching assistant. And $4,300 doesn't sound like much now, but if we index that up to what that $4,300 would be worth today, it would probably be worth more like $20,000. Or when I was teaching high school, I started out at $7,000 a year, and it would be more like $40,000 a year. So they average what your earnings were based on today's wage over 35 years. If you haven't contributed for 35 years, they're going to use 35 as the divider, but there will be zeros in for the years that you didn't contribute. So that is going to lower your benefit amount significantly. On average, Social Security replaces about 40% of a worker's pre-retirement income. Now, there is also a benefit formula called the tilt that puts a formula up against what you earned, that average earnings over a lifetime, and it tilts toward people who are lower income workers. And I can talk about that at another time. The easiest way to get an estimate of your benefit, and I recommend that everybody do that, is to sign up for an online Social Security account called My Account, and you can go to sss.gov/myaccount. You can also calculate your benefit using the Social Security Administration Retirement Planner, also available at ssa.gov planner. So next slide, please. I have been working all my life. I am tired. When can I start claiming Social Security benefits? As a retired worker, you can start receiving benefits as early as age 62. But to receive full benefits, in other words, that full 35-year calculation, you have to wait until your full retirement age. Hold that thought. I'll give you those full retirement ages coming up. If you wait until after full retirement age, your benefit will be increased by up to 8% a year if you wait until age 70. Now, there are many reasons you may want to start your benefit early, but try to hold out on applying for them as long as possible, because that will increase your benefit. Let's look at in the next slide when is your full retirement age? That's kind of small, but I suggest you slip down to, I assume most of you were not born before 1943. If you are, the benefit increases are there, but your full retirement age between 43 and 54 births is 66, and then it zigzags up for 55, 56, 57, 58, 59. If you were born in 1960 and later, your full retirement age is 67. But if you hold on between 67 and 70, you get an 8% increase in your benefit for every year. And even for each month, you get an increase in your benefits. Next slide, please. Next slide. There we go. Now, next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Angela, my apologies. Can we go backwards? I just want to talk about, can I work and receive benefits? Like I say, I have a lot to say. And a lot of people say, well, when I'm 62, can't I just work and get my Social Security benefits too? Well, you can, but there is a penalty for that because Social Security was there to replace income lost due to retirement. So they say you can't work and get the Social Security benefit if you are under full retirement age. So that's 62 to full retirement age. So $1 in your benefits is deducted from your benefit payment for every $2 you earn above the annual limit, which in 2021 is 18,960. So you would have to calculate what you think your earnings is going to be and then decide whether that's worth it to you. In the year you reach full retirement age, $1 in benefits is deducted for every $3 you earn above 50,520 in 2021. And that's only earnings before the month you reach your full retirement age, that those are counted. Once you reach your full retirement age, there is no limit on the amount of money you may earn and still receive your full Social Security benefit. So it may be worth it to you to wait until your full retirement age and then take your Social Security benefit. Some people can't. You may not be well, but not disabled enough to get a disability benefit. So you may need to take your Social Security benefit. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just important that you know what the benefits are. And if you take your benefits at age 62, they are going to be reduced significantly. You'll get about 78% of what you would get at your full retirement age. So let's talk about your family now. Next slide, please. Benefits for your spouse. Your spouse can claim a Social Security benefit based on his or her own earnings record or collect a spousal benefit in the amount of 50% of your benefit, but not both. And I underline that, not both. Now, and I also underline these benefits will not decrease the amount of your retirement benefit. Your spouse's benefit will not come out of yours. Your spouse is automatically entitled to receive whichever benefit provides the higher monthly amount, his or hers, or 50% of yours. If your spouse begins receiving benefits at 62 and full retirement age, the amount is permanently reduced by the percentage based on the number of months up to, let's say your full retirement age is 67. If your spouse takes their benefit at, say, 63, and they don't reach full retirement to 67 or 62 or 65, the amount of the benefit is reduced by a percentage based on the number of months up to that full retirement age of 67. If your spouse is under full retirement age and works for pay while receiving benefits, what I just told you about in the former slide may affect their benefits. Also, if you qualify, if your spouse qualifies in their own record, their application will include both benefits. So it will be calculated for your spouse, which one. At full retirement age, the spouse's benefit cannot exceed 1/2 of your full retirement amount. So if I earn and work and earn my own Social Security benefit, and it is higher than the 50% I would get from my spouse, I will get my own benefit. Okay, your spouse can also receive spouse's benefits at any age if they are caring for your child under age 16 or who became disabled before age 22 and is entitled to benefits. Now let's look at, if I had time, I would tell you about my dear friend whose spouse died at age 50. She had 4 boys, and the child benefits really helped her. She was a nurse. She said she hadn't given a shot to anybody in 30 years. She was taking care of 4 boys. She went back to school so that she could go back to work and earn, and the Social Security benefit meant the world to her. Next slide, please. Benefits for your divorced spouse. And I love that little cartoon up at the top with the 2 people walking off the wedding cake. If you are divorced, your ex-spouse can receive benefits based on your record, even if you have remarried. And underline this, your ex-spouse's benefit will not affect your benefit or the benefit of your current spouse in any way, as long as your current spouse qualifies. Okay, here's how your divorced spouse can get benefits. Your marriage lasted 10 years or longer. So if you're thinking of divorcing your spouse and the marriage is at 9.5 years, hang on for another half year if that 50% might be higher. Your ex-spouse has to be unmarried. Your ex-spouse has to be age 62 or older. And the benefit that your ex-spouse is entitled to receive based on their own work is less than the benefit received that would be based on your work. In other words, it's the same as the current spouse. You also have to be entitled to a Social Security, retirement, or disability benefit. If you have not applied for retirement benefits but can qualify for them, your ex-spouse can receive benefits based on your record if you have been divorced for at least 2 continuous years. And the ex-spouse can claim benefits on your own earnings or collect a benefit 50% of Social Security benefit that is yours, but again, not both. Okay? And the same with the child benefits, the ex-spouse can receive those. But underline this, the benefit amount your ex-spouse receives will not impact your benefit amount. Next slide, please. Benefits for your surviving spouse. And I know people worry about this a lot. Will my spouse be all right when I die? And that's the beauty of Social Security. It is definitely a joint and survivor providing plan. If you qualify for Social Security benefits, your surviving spouse can receive full benefits at full retirement age for survivors, or reduced benefits at as early as age 60. Your spouse can switch from a survivor's benefit to their own retirement benefit at age 62 if it's larger. Your surviving spouse can begin receiving benefits at age 50 if your spouse is severely disabled and the disability started within 7 years of your death. Your spouse can receive survivor benefits at any age if they have not remarried and they take care of your child who is under 16 and or is disabled and receive child's benefits. And your surviving spouse can remarry after reaching age 60, and this is important, and the remarriage will not affect eligibility for survivor benefits. Now, note here that if your surviving spouse remarries, yes, and it's after age 60, your surviving spouse may be eligible to receive the surviving spouse benefit or 50% of the spouse's benefit the person your spouse is married to, but can't receive both. It's whichever is higher. So, and a kicker on this one is a surviving spouse or surviving divorced spouse cannot apply online. Now they're urging people to apply online now, and the Social Security offices have been shut down due to COVID. You need to call and or email your local Social Security office and get that straightened out. They will take benefits and they will tell you what to do as a surviving spouse or a surviving divorced spouse. Next slide. Benefits for your children. This is important. When you qualify for Social Security retirement benefits or disability benefits, your children may also qualify to receive benefits based on your record. And this child can be a biological child, an adopted child, or a stepchild, or in some cases, a dependent grandchild may qualify. To receive benefits, the child must be unmarried. I always find that kind of amusing because I don't know, be under 18, but I guess people still do get married under 18, be 18 to 19 years old and a full-time student, no higher than grade 12, be 18 or older and disabled from a disability that started before age 22. And benefits stop when a child reaches age 18. Next slide, please. I think I have about 30 seconds, so I'm going to run along here. Your Social Security account, and I referred to this before. I think this is very important. A free and very secure. There are all kinds of locks on this. So write it down for yourself and memorize it and eat it or put it in a safe place. My Social Security account provides personalized tools for everyone, whether you receive benefits or not. And the web address is there, www.ssa.gov/myaccount/statement. Now, when you get your Social Security statement, and you'll get it online, you can use the account to get personalized retirement benefit estimates. And there are all kinds of good tools for estimating your benefits and for estimating your retirement income. There are estimates, you can estimate your spouse's benefits. You can get proof that you do not receive benefits. You may need that. You can check your application status if you're applying for benefits. And you can get your Social Security statement from your My Social Security account. Your Social Security statement is an important tool. You can get it if you're, well, everyone who's over 18 and older who is a worker can get the statement. And it's important that you look at this every year, because on your Social Security statement, it is going to give you estimates of what your benefit would be, because they're going to straight line what your estimated income is going to be out to your full retirement age or age 62, or what your disability benefit would be. But it also includes what you earned each of your working years, and it's going to show how many quarters you earned and what your income was. So you want to be sure and check up and make sure that all of your earning years have been recorded by your employer. And be sure you do that, particularly if you work for a small employer, or if you have worked for a small employer. Be sure that those earnings are recorded correctly. And my final slide, next slide, please. This is a biggie, and it doesn't just go for little old ladies like me. It goes for an awful lot of people. There are Social Security scams out there now, and be aware and be informed. No one from Social Security is going to call you and say there's a problem with your Social Security account. Give me your Social Security number. Social Security will mail you a letter if there is a problem. They will mail you a letter with detailed information if payments are due. You have the ability to appeal any decision, use emails and text messages, and they will not use social media. Social Security information on their website is general. It is not personal or financial information. So put this checklist near your phone. If a caller states there is a problem with your Social Security number or account, hang up. Do not provide the caller with money, cash, gift, wire transfer, or prepaid debit cards or personal information. If they call and say, your Social Security account has paid you more money than you should get, and you can just pay me back, don't do that. And please report it to the Social Security fraud hotline. You can get the Social Security law enforcement team at the Office of the Inspector General on the line, and that's www.oig, that's Office of the Inspector General, .ssa.gov. Please, and there's so many scams out there. And remember, Social Security, that's kind of the gateway to everything, because your Social Security number is the gateway to everything. So that's the end of my presentation, other than if your eyes aren't zinging around in your head right now from all of the information I have thrown at you, I will do my best to answer questions. Also, please check in on the Wiser website for Wiser Women, or go to ssa.gov. There's all kinds of information there. Phew.
Laurel, thank you so very much for your thought-provoking and presentation. I certainly have a lot of notes here for myself, and thank you for taking questions. At this time, we'd like to invite our audience to ask questions, to use the chat, and we will share your questions with Laurel. And while you're doing so, Laurel, I have several questions that I'd like to ask.
Sure.
Okay. So the first being, for individuals who don't have access to broadband or a home computer, how would they contact Social Security? Would it be in writing? Is it via certified letter, or?
There is a phone number, and I have it in one of the slides, and let me see if I can find it here. Yes, there is a phone number, and the phone number will, I almost said all you have to do is Google the phone number, which is pretty dumb. Let's see, there's a 1-800 number for the fraud line. May I, because I'm slashing through here, let me email you, Angie, and will you put it up for people, please? I am so, here we go. Thank you. Benefit for surviving spouse, and this is the straight up Social Security number, 1-800-772-1111. 1213. And may I suggest, please do not call on Mondays, because that's, people spend the weekend saying, okay, Monday morning, I'm going to get on the phone and I'm going to make an appointment with the doctor. I'm going to call the Social Security Administration. Everybody calls. Wait until Tuesday or Wednesday. And the old Social Security Commissioner, or the former Social Security Commissioner, used to say, call and have breakfast with me. Call early in the morning on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday. I suspect you are going to have to wait on hold because the offices are closed due to COVID. And it's very frustrating. Bring your coffee with you and your work or something to read. But yes, do call. And as soon as I get information from SSA about opening the offices, I will let you all know.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then my second question is, seemingly with every new presidential administration, we hear about privatizing Social Security.
Yeah.
Is that something that we need to stay in tune about, or is that a reality? And how might that affect us if that ever becomes a reality?
Well, that's a good question. And it's a good question that goes back to the discussion of the trust funds and the stability of the trust funds. Back in 1983, we were having some of the same financial problems, and legislation was passed, and they moved the retirement age up to 67, and they raised the tax rates a little bit, and they did a lot of things, and it stabilized Social Security. But this issue of by 2035, things are going to be shaky and we won't be able to pay full benefits on time. So we need to think about a better way of funding Social Security. So up until 2008, people were doing really, really well in the stock market. And they said, well, why don't we privatize Social Security and make it an investment entity instead? And then the 2008 recession hit and the stock market bottomed out, and people looked at their investments, and there was Social Security going along good because it was stable. Now, it is important that everybody understands Social Security cannot be your be all or end all. But because it is so important as a base, and I think even the people who wanted to privatize it had their stomachs shaken up a little bit in 2008. Whenever the economy bumps, it gets scary. And when you have your investment in United States treasuries, and the thing about the investments is some are long-term, some are short-term, some are middle-term. So even if the market rocks a little bit, and I would love to come back and do in my peas and carrots, do a little piece on strengthening Social Security and what some of the options are. Right now, I don't think privatizing of Social Security is an issue. We're so focused on the private investment and savings issues, such as 401ks.
Well, you did answer my question, and thank you. And you always are welcome to come back. And I open the floor again to our audience to ask questions via the chat. And while we wait for those questions, I have another question, and that's about the gig economy, the worker at demand. And something when you spoke to the solvency of Social Security, I thought about that gig economy that is flourishing, almost, to a demand, if you will. Or any thoughts on how this gig economy might impact Social Security for generations to come?
That's a really good question. And I think, the short, snappy answer is we don't know yet. The longer answer is, are workers in the gig economy paying into Social Security? And this has been a real fight all the way along about, is Uber and is Lyft employing their drivers? If so, they would have to pay Social Security and maybe health insurance and maybe retirement benefits, as long as they are considered contractors, which is, there's your gig. Then that means the workers need to pay their own. And I think this is something, the gig economy is pumping along because we didn't have many other options. I think a lot of gig workers, if they could, would go to work for someone who is paying their Social Security, their 6.2% half. And so again, we need to get out a little further. Now, I know GAO, that's where I retired from, the investigative arm of the Congress. I know they did a report on the gig economy. I think it was in 2019. That may be out of date, but I think those are at least the issues that we have to look at. Meanwhile, those people who are not paying into Social Security, they should be, but they may be getting by with not doing it. What they're losing out on, and where my heart just goes out, is they're going to lose Social Security. We're going to have a problem with really poor older people. And as far as women and people of color who earns less consistently and who is in and out of the labor force because of the kinds of jobs they're working in, women and people of color. And that means lower retirement income. There's also a wiser, I will get you the name of the publication that I did on, and it's women, the data is on women, but it really shows who earns less, what happens to them because of that. So gig, it's great that people are able to work and put food on the table, but I urge everybody. And my favorite saying is, people say, "Oh, these people are poor," and they're poor because they don't have any money. It's not because they're not working hard, and that. So that's I will get off my sermon box here.
Well, thank you. And again, we have just a few minutes. And if our audience has any questions, we welcome them. And here is a question, and I'm going to read it. The question reads, I read something about you're paying back Social Security, the money you collected at early retirement. And will this allow you to collect full retirement benefits? Is this legitimate?
Yes, it is, and yes, it is. You can. I think maybe 10 people in the world have done it. I know people say, well, I'm going to take my benefits at 62, but I'm not going to spend the money. I'm going to save it up, and then I'm going to get back, when they end up not doing that. But if you can buy back in, and if you would like, I cannot remember all the ins and outs of that because it is so unusual, but I can look up and find the right site for you, zap it to Angela, and does that work?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And I know that this is probably for another conversation, Laurel, but if you can please elaborate on Social Security being a base and then the importance of other retirement income?
Sure. I'll have to talk real fast, I guess. Well, if you think about the average income that I showed you, $18,000, $20,000, $25,000 a year, and think about trying to live on that, that does stimulate one. And if you go to my Social Security account, and look at what your estimated Social Security benefit is, again, you say, whoa, can I live on that? Now, if your employer is offering, I don't know how NCBA works, but if your employer is offering some kind of a savings plan, do it, and do absolutely as much as you can. And if there is a match, oh my goodness, a match is free money. Now, a lot of employers, because of the bad economic times we've gone through now, or we're coming out of that funny year, aren't offering matches. But if they are, match it. That's free money. Also, you can save on your own. You can save either in a regular IRA or in a Roth IRA. Now, a regular IRA, what that does is that defers your paying tax on that income. So you take that money out of your income and you put it into a Roth. And you don't pay taxes on it until you are retired and you take it out. The whole purpose of that is for retirement income, and you take it out. But remember, now you're going to have to pay taxes on it, and it has been earning interest, we hope, over your working years. Now, there's a second kind of IRA. It's called a Roth IRA. Now, the Roth IRA says, okay, this is earnings. Pay your taxes on it now, include it in your taxable income, but it will invest it and it will earn interest tax-free. So I hear people all the time who retire and say, now I've got all this IRA money and I'm going to take it out. And then they say, you mean I have to pay taxes on it? Well, yeah, you do, because you didn't pay taxes in the first place, unless you have a Roth IRA. Now, that's up to you. That's up to you when you're reading. You may have a financial advisor you may want to talk about, but those are two other ways that you can save. And if you need the tax deferral, that's a way to do it. A lot of times you end up with more money than you thought you were going to have if you're working hard all the way along in a stable job. So it is extremely important, because you just, oh, and by the way, your house, your mortgage, I look at what I paid for my house and what I can get for my house. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to cash out my house, because if I did that, that would mean I'd have to live in a refrigerator crate on the corner. But what it does mean is that when the time comes and I don't want to live in my poor knees, cannot stand living in a 3-story house anymore, I can move in with either some of the other little old ladies in a continuing care retirement community, or I can move to a condominium that is all on one floor, and I have something to pay for that with. Now, buying real estate isn't for everybody. Some people want to be renters. It makes sense to be renters, but a home can be considered an investment. But do save, and save. Think about saving. Every paycheck, try and put something away. And Wiser has got a lot of information on saving and savings mechanisms. Go to our website and just peruse everything that's there. There's lots of good stuff on this.
Thank you so much. You just gave me another reason to invite you back. We love you, and and we hope you'll come back and talk with us about savings and the importance of saving and how to save. And we just are very appreciative of your presentation today. And we are at 2:03.
Ta-da! Not bad. Just a little over.
That's okay. That's okay. And so we want to thank you, Laurel, again for joining us and sharing that thought-provoking presentation. We want to thank our audience for joining us today. And we know that you learned a lot. And if you have questions, please email me at angiebody@ncba-aging.org. And I'm happy to get your questions to Laurel, and we will work really hard to answer them. We also hope you can join us next Thursday September 23rd, we are going to be joined by the American Red Cross to learn how to respond to emergencies and recover during the time of COVID. So we have a lot on tap, and we hope you can join us. And Laurel, thank you again. As always, thank you.
It's a pleasure. I feel so strongly about this, and about particularly, no offense, gentlemen, but women getting on this. You know, we really need to do this. So if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. I probably can't answer your individual questions because I don't have your social security records. SSA does, but I'll try and give you general answers and questions for you to ask.
Okay. Well, thank you, and we'll give you back your day.
Thank you so much. I love doing this.
And
See
thank you,
guys soon.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.